Hello everyone. Today our group will be presenting our case study on Soham murders of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman.
My name is Diki Yangser, and for my part, I'll be talking briefly about the case and then sharing how forensic botany evidence was utilized in convicting Ian Huntley on the Soham murder of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. On August 4, 2002, Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, both 10 years old, left the family barbecue at the Wells residence without telling anyone where they were going. They later find out that they had gone to buy candy. When the mother of Holly Wells was unable to locate the girls, they called the Chapman residence to find out if they had gone there. When Holly and Jessica are still not home by their curfew time of 8:30 p.m., the parents start to get worried. By 9:55 p.m., the Wells and Chapmans notify police of the missing girls. Extensive search takes place by the police. One of the witnesses, Ian Huntley, that comes forward says that he has seen the girls the day they went missing. He's a caretaker at the school that Holly and Jessica attends. The evasive manners in which Ian Huntley answered police questions and things not matching up, the police started to suspect Ian Huntley having involvement in the missing children case of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. Huntley's house was thoroughly searched. No evidence was found initially, but the police noted extensive signs of cleaning at the house. 2 weeks later, on August 17, 2002, two partially burned and decomposed bodies would be found in a 5-foot irrigation ditch by Keith Pryor, who happened to be walking in that area with 2 other people in Suffolk, 16 kilometers east of Soham. DNA identification later confirms that the 2 bodies were in fact that of Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. The coroner determined that the most likely cause of death to be asphyxiation. The coroner also determined that the death had not occurred where the bodies were located, but they had most likely been moved there. As the bodies were recovered, the police wanted to learn the pathway that the killer took to get to the ditch where the bodies were found. They called in Dr. Wilshire, a forensic botanist, to further study the crime scene. She was the first one allowed on the crime scene. The surrounding area of the body disposal site was chest-high with stinging nettles and other plants with no gaps to be seen. Dr. Wilshire was able to see that the nettles had been walked on from the recovery growth observed. She discovered that the nettles were growing new side shoots, which only happens when someone has trampled on the nettles. The police wanted her to determine the last time these stinging nettles had been walked upon. Based on the growth pattern, Dr. Wilshire estimated 2 weeks, but to forensically determine the time frame, Dr. Wilshire created the scene at a nearby field. A volunteer carried a sack of sand, matching the weight of the 2 girls, and walked into a patch of nettles twice to reconstruct the actions of Ian Huntley. The nettles were observed for a period of 13.5 days. The photographs of the nettles from the reconstruction were compared to the nettles found at the crime scene, and it matched. This allowed them to determine the time the nettles were last walked upon. As the investigators followed the pathway to the disposal sites for the bodies through the nettles shown by Dr. Wilshire, they were able to recover Jessica Chapman's hair from twigs. Dr. Wilshire gathered soil samples from the footprints at the crime scene to test for pollen. The investigators provided Huntley's car, 2 pairs of Ian Huntley's shoes, and the girls' clothing to test for pollen. The girls' clothing had fragments of the vegetation found at the ditch. Both shoes from Ian Huntley matched the vegetation found at the crime scene, which provided information that Ian Huntley had been at the disposal site of the bodies at least twice. The chassis, spare wheel, footwells, and both of his shoes matched pollen found in the ditch where the girls' partially burned bodies were found. The fiber evidence and the botany evidence were crucial in solving this crime. In the case of Soham murders, Dr. Wilshire was able to provide timeline of the murder, the path taken by the murderer which led to the recovery of the hair from the victim, and tie the shoes of the murderer and clothing of the victim to the crime scene. The botanical evidence was so strong that 1 hour after Dr. Wilshire presented the evidence in court, the defendant, Ian Huntley, pled guilty to the crime of murdering 2 innocent children, Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman.